Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa has substantial manganese potential to unlock through the provision of adequate rail infrastructure. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer is in the studio to tell us more about these opportunities. Welcome to the show, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, BHP Bulletin chairperson Zolani Mkhwanazi says that South Africa needs to do things differently in relation to rail. What is he referring to?
Yeah, it certainly needs business unusual, because usual business has not helped at all. It's a question of public sector versus private sector. You know, you've got the private sector that's mining and producing goods and services that they want to sell, and it's the public sector which is supposed to lay on the logistics. They are the custodians and owners of the logistics, and they just don't do their job. So you've got the mining fraternity that's ready to export more, create more wealth for the country, spin off more jobs, and you've got a government that's sabotaging all that. So we need business unusual, and we need what he calls a public-private partnership, where both parties get involved. And just about every miner that I've spoken to that needs logistics, even the smaller ones, say, look, we're prepared to buy train sets, we're prepared to buy wagons, but we do need the rail on which to roll all this stuff. And government has been pussyfooting around this. I mean, we've seen so many top people come into Transnet. I mean, we had Saki Makazoma there. He's no slouch. He's now on the other end. Of course, he's trying to rail this manganese now, and he's saying to himself, dash it, I should have provided the rail while I was in there. Maria Ramos, another top profile person. She was in Transnet, but she occupied most of her time on the balance sheet, it seems. She put emphasis on fixing up that balance sheet rather than on getting these new projects going. Now, we've just heard that there's a new CEO coming through, and hopefully he's going to move very fast and do things that are out of the new paradigm, and perhaps public-private partnerships.
Now, Xstrata Alloys Executive Director Mike Rousseau has also mentioned that manganese is South Africa's saddest mining story. What's that story?
Well, it's a sad story, because here we're sitting in the Kalahari Basin on the best manganese in the world, not only in terms of quantity, but quality. And guess how much market share we've got? We've got 15% of the world market, but we've got 80% of the reserves and resources. It's a total mismatch. Because of this lack of rail. And when you look at the Chinese situation, I mean, it's just about reverse. They've got few resources but big production. What we're looking for is to try and balance that out at least. And there is this demand, there's this opportunity, because there's a demand for steel, and that they need the manganese and the sort of quality we've got they need. And no matter what conference you go to, people the world over say, South Africa is going to have to play a bigger role here, but what about the rail? So what people have been doing, they've been tracking it, because you now have the manganese has got to go to Port Elizabeth on the general freight line. I mean, that is so inefficient, it's unbelievable. You're losing money along the way because it's inefficient, it's slow. And the idea is now to get it on the iron ore line, rather put new loops on the iron ore line and use the iron ore line for manganese as well.
Now, unlocking this potential for manganese will create significant amounts of jobs. Can you elaborate?
Every time you go into any forum at the moment, and it's almost worldwide, particularly Western world and South Africa, if you go to any funder that is state-owned, or any funder that is on the official side of the divide, they say, well, how many jobs will this create? I mean, there's just jobs on everybody's mind, because we've got a high unemployment rate, officially about 25%, but unofficially, we think it's considerably more. And this is the sort of activity that can create a lot of jobs and build communities, because you've got a mining activity which is still fairly labor intensive. You've got all the logistics part of it. So as the private sector grows, they create jobs. And then the public sector, which is involved in the infrastructure development, by putting in that infrastructure, they're going to create jobs. And then, of course, they can also do some of the other public works activities to create jobs for people in the area. Jobs are what we need in South Africa, but they shouldn't be artificially created. We should rather use the resources that we got to create this genuine growth, which then automatically spins off job potential.
Now, Mkhwanazi has also mentioned that the mining industry has been waiting for government to handle these PPPs for some time now. What do you think's holding them up?
Indecision. You know, I spoke to Assor after their results. They've trebled their interim profits, but they're sitting there wanting to get more iron ore to market, and of course they're also a big manganese player. They're listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and they didn't want to come on record, but I could hear that they are frustrated, you know, over the lack of decision making. We haven't had we've had an acting CEO at Transnet for more months than is reasonable. You know, and even now, you know, the new CEO coming in, Brian Malefe, I mean, he's going to have to find his feet, surely. We have got a chairman there who knows the background, and he is an executive chairman. I just hope that they take decisions. We've got to take strong decisions. And if you can do it in partnership with the private sector, you're in the pound seats. I mean, who's asking for this? BHP Billiton. BHP Billiton, the richest mining company in the world, with money coming out of their ears, expertise like you can't believe. They own railway lines. They own railways. You know, they've offered to bring the people out to show us how to do it. In fact, they've had shadow teams here for a long time saying, you know, this is the way you can create an efficiency. Nobody listens. Nobody does anything. I remember, you know, Peter Bevan of BHP Billiton, he was in talks with Transnet. He's not even in South Africa anymore. I think it was more out of frustration than anything else. He's now in Chile. Okay, it's a promotion for him, and he's in copper, which is in a good space. But still, I could see the body language. Frustration. You know, this is all you have, frustration. You talk, and it's a talk shop. Nobody takes any decisions. Brother, they're sabotaging their own country, this government. You know, they need to really, either, if they find the kitchen too hot, they must get out of it. But I think the PPP is the answer, where they get this expertise. They're both parties investing, or both parties actively coming together. You can't go wrong. And that's where the decisions must be taken. And it'll be taken in a way that is not just one company, it's the government with a lot of various mining companies. They're safe. They must take those decisions now.
Well, let's hope government's watching this show.
Well,
Thank you very much,
I hope so
Martin.
too.
Thank you. That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.
For 30 years, Creamer Media's Engineering News has delivered unmatched insight into South Africa's real economy. Subscribe now and go to engineeringnews.co.za for the real economy in real time. Engineering News, not just for engineers.